let's talk about the book. Okay. Fourth Wing TikTok For You page, and I'm in love with the book.
How many people in here have read it?
Hello, my fellow bookish witches. Welcome to Witchy Reads. Before we get into today's video, please make sure to like this video, and if the spirit moves you, subscribe to my channel. Today, I want to talk about my adventure at the Las Vegas Book Festival. The Las Vegas Book Festival, or LVBF, is the largest literary event that happens in Nevada. It's held at the historic 5th Street School in downtown Las Vegas, which is very cool. Downtown Las Vegas, I feel, gets a bit of a bad rap. It's not exactly the safest area. There are certain areas of it that are very cool, especially like in the arts district. I personally really like that. This year marks the 22nd year of the book festival, which is really cool that this event has been going on for over 20 years. The festival provides a wide range of festival programming built around sharing resources, developing audiences, advancing the craft of writing, and bestowing the joys of reading to all. The festival has presented countless authors and speakers through events, sessions, readings, workshops, and book signings. There is also a large children's area with numerous activities such as a story walk and face painting. They also had a really nice setup of different vendor stands specifically for Latino authors and books, which was very cool. The book festival had 4 headliners: Anna Reyes, Terry McMillan, Malcolm Nance, and Rebecca Yarros. If that name sounds familiar, that's because she is the author of the very popular new adult romantasy, she used that word, novel Fourth Wing. I will come right out and say it. Yarros was the main reason that I attended the book festival. As much as I like getting out and doing things like that, it's a little bit more difficult now with a toddler to get out of the house by myself and be able to enjoy something like that. It was a big deal to set aside that time, and even though I have not read Fourth Wing, I was curious to see how the festival would go, especially with the hype that surrounds both Rebecca Yarros and Fourth Wing. The festival itself was scheduled from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Rebecca Yarros' panel was scheduled at 2. I strolled up at 1 p.m. I also ended up having to park about a block away from where the festival was taking place because I really couldn't figure out what the parking situation was. The free parking garage was situated right next to the festival, but that road they had blocked off for it, and I just couldn't figure out how to get there. I'm not the greatest at directions, and silly me, I didn't save the map to my phone. So I ended up parking in a parking garage a block away and having to walk in the 95-degree heat to the festival. It was fine. I'm fine. I survived. I figured when I arrived, I had about 20 minutes to wander around the festival real quick before I had to actively get in line for Yarros' panel. I decided to check out the vendors that were available, which there were quite a few. I was actually really impressed with the amount of vendors and the setup that they had for the festival. The vendors and stands had a range of small publishers, authors who were on their own that were promoting their own books, as well as bookstores, primarily the smaller indie or used bookstores. And that is where I ended up. I managed to wander over to a booth for The Book and the Bean, which seems to be a small e-commerce bookstore that is located in Henderson, Nevada. They had a lot of other little trinkets as well. They had the right kind of books to like draw me in. I was sold right off the bat. My inner book dragon took over and I did end up buying a few things. First, I bought these cute little earrings which have a cat in a coffee cup. Perfect. I love them. I love them. They're so cute. It was the last one and I was contemplating it, and then a couple more people came in and I was like, nope, I'm not going to risk losing it. And so I quickly snagged them up. The other thing that I bought were obviously 2 books. The first of which is for me. I got Hester by Lori Licco Albanese. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This drew me in mainly for the cover. I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful cover. Not only is it flowers, but it looks like embroidery and it's raised. And I loved it so much. Also too, Hester, I recognized the character from the Scarlet Letter. So I was like, ooh, maybe this is a retelling. And I was right. And not only is it a retelling, it's a witchy retelling. So I can't wait to read this. This will be interesting. The other book that I got was the I'm a Little Pumpkin by Hannah Elliott, illustrated by Anna Daviscourt. This I got for my son, my 1-year-old. He loved it. And what's so cute about it is it's I'm a Little Pumpkin. So you read it into the tune of I'm a Little Teapot. We read it a few times when I got home this afternoon. He absolutely adored it. He is really into pumpkins right now.
I had more restraint than I thought. Only bought 1 book for myself.
I really thought that because this book festival was free and on the smaller scale, that I didn't need to worry about getting into the panel for Rebecca Yarros. My bad. That was a mistake. Evidently, I was wrong. Mind you, the panel starts at 2. So around 1:37 is when I start to actively look for the auditorium where the panel is meant to take place. I'm just kind of wandering around, and since I'm there by myself, I do what I do best, which is pay attention to others and follow people who seem like they know what they're doing more so than myself. And that is how I stumbled upon the group of people heading to the auditorium. I did eventually manage to find the correct line, and so I got in line and was waiting. And then I got almost up to the door and we were told that the auditorium was at capacity. And I just kind of chuckled to myself.
Bummer. I'm right there.
Because this was the whole point of me going to this book festival. And I was like, well, if it doesn't work out, then I guess like I'll finish wandering around, seeing if there's other vendors, and then head out. Security was very nice. They did say as people would leave the auditorium that they would allow people to replace them and go in. I thought this was reasonable and decided, you know, I'm just going to stick it out. I'll wait in line. The ladies in front of me were very distraught by the fact that we were like right at the door and they couldn't get in. All this really didn't matter because about 5 minutes after that, they came out and said they were going to start bringing in groups of about 20 and basically allowing for a standing room. I was perfectly fine with this and actually preferred it because I think I got a much better view of the panel than I would have had I been sitting in a chair in like the very back of the auditorium.
Oh yeah, somebody gets it.
To be honest, I was just really relieved that I even got in. Not only have I not read Fourth Wing, but a part of me has been actively avoiding it because there seems to be such strong love and strong hate for it. A lot of the reviewers that I follow haven't really had anything nice to say about the book, and quite frankly, this year has been a bit rough for me as far as the books I've read. I could count on one hand the number of books that I really enjoyed, or at least got some kind of enjoyment out of this year. I just don't think I have the energy to read another book that is going to waste my time and I may not like. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I probably will. I am interested in new adult and I do enjoy fantasy, and come on, I mean, dragons, it will eventually probably get read, but the fact is that I do have a really long TBR and I'm still adding books. I mean, heck, I bought a book today at the book festival. That TBR pile is not really shrinking, so I don't know if I have the energy to be adding book 1 of a 5-book series to that pile. All that being said, Rebecca Yarros really seems like a cool person. The second Rebecca Yarros stepped foot on that stage in the auditorium, it was like I had gotten transported back to my Boy Wizard and Twilight days.
Current #1 New York Times bestseller for her book, Fourth Wing, Rebecca Yarros.
The auditorium erupted, there was applause. I was able to scan the crowd and take in the fact that I was surrounded by people who were here because they enjoyed a book. And I love that. I really felt like that was marvelous. However you feel about Fourth Wing, you can't deny the absolute magic in something like that. It was really nice to be embraced by that feeling of nostalgia.
Tell us a little bit about Fourth Wing.
So how many people in here have read it?
I did learn a lot about Yarros and Fourth Wing, so spoilers.
Because this book goes down.
Some of the highlights were,
I had only ever written one other fantasy book, which was my very first book, and it didn't sell. And so I'd always wanted to go back to writing fantasy, but then suddenly they're like, you're gonna launch the line, but you have to write the first 50 pages. I'm like, yeah, no pressure.
finding out one of the dragons in Fourth Wing is based off of her grumpy old man bulldog.
And you made it to where, spoiler alert, they can speak telepathically to the bonded writers. Why did you want to do that?
Because they're people. They're characters. So one thing I love about Fourth Wing is that the dragons aren't pets, the humans are.
And that's honestly, that is a twist, because usually we'll see all of these dragon shows and books with dragons that they're the pet, but really the humans are the pet in this book.
Yeah, the humans are the pet, and the dragons have all the knowledge on all the control. They have their own politics, their own system, and they're responsible for a lot of how Obiscayeth works. So I loved giving them their own voices. And Taryn, so Taryn is based off my English bulldog who passed. He passed like 2 months. It's okay, he was 12 and a half. If you ever have an English bulldog, an English bulldog living to 12 and a half is like, did you guys see Twilight? Okay, so you know the last Volturi, when he's out there, he's like, finally. Like, that was my English bulldog. He was ready, and I loved him, but he had this very distinctive, like, get off my lawn, old man energy. And I loved him because he was surly, but he was so kind and affectionate to our family, but he was just a jerk face to other people. And I totally channeled him for Taryn. So that's where Taryn comes from.
How she dealt with her book success on TikTok.
Normal marketing is like a rainstorm, and you want to saturate the market and everyone know you're there. And book talk's like, Fourth Wing is the hurricane and I'm the island. So it is. Book talk, it got picked up. And The Things We Leave Unfinished is a book I'd written, and it had gotten picked up on TikTok a little bit. So I had kind of an idea of what that was like, but Fourth Wing was, like, I couldn't escape myself. And at one point, I think my bio said, I know I can't escape it either. And then for my mental health, I blocked my name and I blocked the book's hashtag, because I felt like book talk had become such a reader space. I didn't belong there, and I didn't belong in the conversations, and stumbling into conversations I don't belong in. Whew. So it's amazing. And I think book talk, here's the one thing I will tell you. Book talk's the one place publishers have no sway. So Goodreads, Facebook, even Twitter, if you're on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, you can do ads, right? TikTok, you can get some paid promotions, but for the most part, TikTok is a reader-driven space. Readers pick up the books, readers like the books, readers post. If they don't like the book, it doesn't, swell up. So I think it is the last reader-driven space that can do that to a book, and I'm extremely grateful everyone loved it.
How she was able to provide inclusivity in her book by giving her protagonist the disability that she lives with, EDS, Alas Danos. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Let's talk about the characters in the book, like Violent and Zayden and all of these names, right? Where did you think of, and how do you think of characters' names and their nicknames, by the way? Violence, that was clever.
So I knew I wanted to call her Violence because it was a big part of her arc about accepting kind of who you are and not who you think you are. And I knew that Violet would go along really well with that, and so I'm like, her name's gonna be Violet. Zayden, I legit was like, hot guy names. Yeah, and like, I don't know about you guys, but when we had our kids, as you can tell, we have a lot. I would put like a list of names on the refrigerator, and so would my husband, and as we walked by, we would like scratch off names that we didn't agree from the other person's list, and whatever we had at the end was the baby. So I would just like, I had this list of names, I'm like, that doesn't sound right, and so we had Zayden. He was like the survival. It's what made it.
I love it. Now, Violet, I mean, you were kind of describing earlier, and in the book, she's very fragile and weak, and you don't really plain out say in the book that she has this connective tissue disorder. Why did you do that?
So one, they wouldn't have the technology to know what Ehlers-Danlos is. And two, one thing I found to be really interesting as the book came out is that people with chronic illness or EDS even spotted it within a chapter to 2 chapters, and they knew immediately that she had a chronic illness. And a lot of able-bodied people didn't, and they just called her weak and frail. And I found that it kind of mirrored our own society where people with chronic illness see each other and see the accommodations they need and can recognize that, and some people can't. So I found it very interesting to see who spotted it and who didn't. I also know I'm not a monolith, so EDS has like 13 subtypes. And I've watched my sons, and four of my sons, who are only my biological children, they all have it. There's like a 50% chance you give your kid EDS, and they all have it. And it presents differently in all of them. So it was important to me to show that it's not just my experience. I have experiences in there from my sons, and kind of hope I got it right. So I was terrified. I was terrified for the first couple months the book came out that people would say this isn't my lived experience and this isn't right. So it was really humbling to hear people say they felt represented.
Wow.
All in all, I really enjoyed Rebecca Yarros' panel.
Where Violet is finally getting, and she's like, why am I feeling this way? Okay? And then she's like, hallucinating. Everyone, is she drunk? She's not. She doesn't really drink in the book. Tell us a little bit about that moment, and I guess you can spoil things if you want, but that part is like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And then she gets to it at the end of the scene.
I know, we have
I'll let you take over.
So one, I'm a romance author at heart, right? So, and Fourth Wing is a romantasy. Like, it is a romance novel set in a fantasy world. So there's gonna be heat, there was always gonna be heat, and I like heat, and I think there's nothing wrong with it, nothing wrong with a little heat. So, that scene, it was super fun to write, and
It was super fun to read. And a lot of other parts of the book when I'm like, I'm calling my husband like, babe, I have no idea what I just read.
and my husband's like, you did what with dragons? I'm like, no, go read it. But it also foreshadows that you can't block your dragons out, which becomes very important in other, there's plot points, okay?
Were they? No, I'm kidding.
Sometimes.
And okay, so there is the most spiciest scene in that, towards the end of the book, in chapter 3 to be like I said, after reading that chapter, and I never really scream out like while I'm reading.
I would hope not.
After reading that, I went like this. Okay? So I'm at my desk and I'm reading it, and I'm jaw dropped, and I finish, and I'm like, babe, you have no, and I'm telling my husband about the chapter.
I thought, like, is this safe for this audience?
I'm not sure
Actually in public?
But tell us how you're able to get into that mind zone.
Oh my God.
In a sense where, like, I am going to get this far, or, you know, let's keep it clean, or where did you draw the boundaries between the two? Like, I'm gonna go further, and let's go all in.
I have nothing but love and respect for clean romance authors. I am not one of them. My kids can't be home. Let's start with that. They gotta be at school. The house has gotta be empty, because nothing is worse than you're like, okay, I've got this, am I gonna use that word? I'm gonna use that word! And then your kid walks in like, hey mom, I forgot that I have this project due, and I know it's 9 p.m. and Michael's is closed right now, but I need a poster board and 3 things of Mod Podge. Right? And suddenly you're like, and there goes your scene. So my kids have to be gone, and I have to have like a playlist. I just have to be left alone.
Can we know what's on the playlist?
Dude.
Maybe a song or two?
A lot of Florence and the Machine, a lot of The Weeknd, a lot of
Name a song from The Weeknd that you love.
I love Starboy.
Love Starboy.
That's probably like, yeah, I love that song. So my husband like hears that, he's like, hey. Do you need inspiration? Right? Because he's retired now, and I'm like, no sir. Upstairs. Like, I will let you know when you're needed. I hope he's not watching.
You could definitely tell that this was one of the bigger years for the Las Vegas Book Festival. I attribute a lot of that to the fact that they had Rebecca Yarros there. It was mentioned a few times at the beginning of the panel just how many people were in the auditorium and the fact that they were at capacity or above capacity.
We're over capacity, you guys. This is awesome.
Clearly, she was a big draw. I am not sure what their previous years have looked like. This is the first time I've ever been. My guess is they haven't gotten an author that is in the kind of young adult, new adult, like teenager, early 20s demographic. And I think that really made a big difference in the attendance for the book festival. Although I have heard that smaller events such as this have been starting to get a little bit more attention since the pandemic. Honestly, I think that's a real good thing. Events such as the Las Vegas Book Festival should absolutely be able to draw crowds like they did today. I loved how they had things set up, from the vendors to the kids area to even having a place where you can drop off books to donate. They also had food trucks, which I think whenever you have a festival or event that is outside, providing a place for food trucks to just pull up and provide food for everybody at the event is a brilliant idea. And I think more events should do that. The Las Vegas Book Festival was very much set up to promote local artists and authors and local businesses. And I always love when an event has that as the primary focus. I'm always willing to spend my money at places that support the local community and provide that support. Honestly, at this point, the only downside I have was the fact that it was 95 degrees today. The heat was almost unbearable, especially since the event was outside. All I kept thinking about was next week, the temperature is supposed to drop considerably. I was able to manage. This is just my personal complaint. Although I did see some ladies walking around with parasols, and I thought I could definitely pull off that look. The fact that I'm a witch and I don't already own a parasol while I live in the desert is a crime. So I will be adding a very stylish purple parasol to my wish list. If you happen to be in Las Vegas this time next year, I do highly recommend that you stop by the Las Vegas Book Festival. It was a nice, cute event that supported the local community. It might not be on the strip, but it's fun for the bookish witches out there. I do hope that I get to continue going to book events like this. It's definitely something I want to continue doing for this channel. I think it's another fun way to be a part of the bookish community. Until next time, this is Witchy Reads saying go find a local book festival to enjoy.